Sophie Sergi, born in 1973, originated from the small and secluded village of Pitkas Point in western Alaska, located on the Yukon River. With a population of less than 200 individuals during that time, Pitkas Point was primarily inhabited by indigenous people. Growing up in this tight-knit community, Sophie's upbringing was shaped by the unique trials and beauties of rural Alaska. The village, known for its seclusion and small population, instilled in Sophie a sense of community, family values, and a strong connection to her indigenous heritage. Life in Pitkas Point was likely characterized by the close bond between community members who shared a common way of life in the remote Alaskan wilderness. Sophie was regarded as an exceptional daughter and an exemplary individual. Her character was defined by qualities such as intelligence, diligence, and a resolute determination to pursue her aspirations. Within the community, she became a role model, particularly for the younger generation. Sophie's ambitions extended beyond the confines of her small village, and she nurtured dreams of achieving significant accomplishments in her life. Despite the challenges posed by the remote location and limited resources, Sophie's commitment to education shone through. She managed to secure a full scholarship to the University of Alaska, a prestigious opportunity that necessitated her relocation approximately 500 miles away from her hometown. This transition represented a significant shift from the close-knit indigenous community to the vibrant and culturally diverse environment of the university. Sophie's academic pursuits at the university revolved around marine biology, a field that mirrored her fascination with the marvels of the ocean. As Sophie excelled in her studies, she encountered a pivotal moment in her life that compelled her to temporarily pause her college education. The reasons behind this decision were twofold. Initially, Sophie experienced a deep sense of duty towards her family, particularly her elderly mother, and desired to go back home to provide them with care and support. Additionally, she acknowledged the financial limitations that came with her educational journey and made the decision to work and save money for necessary dental surgery. Throughout her time away from university, Sophie assumed the role of a teacher's assistant at a school in her hometown village. This choice demonstrated her dedication to contributing to the community and showcased her strong work ethic. By taking charge of her financial situation and striving to save money for her dental surgery instead of relying on her family, Sophie displayed her independence and sense of responsibility. After completing 2 years of studying marine biology, she planned to re-enroll in college, which symbolized her unwavering commitment to achieving her academic aspirations. However, the course of Sophie's life took a tragic turn during a weekend trip to Fairbanks in April 1993. On April 25, 1993, what seemed like an ordinary day filled with regular activities, Sophie flew to Fairbanks for a dental appointment. Her plans included staying with her friend, Shirley, who was a student at the University of Alaska Fairbanks and resided in Bartlett Hall, a dormitory. That evening, Sophie went out with friends, enjoying a movie and some food, engaging in activities that mirrored the lives of countless college students. The last known photograph of Sophie captured a moment of pure joy, with her arms outstretched as if ready to embrace the world during a sunset-watching adventure. Returning to Shirley's room in Bartlett Hall, Sophie spent the night in a relaxed atmosphere, watching movies and hanging out with Shirley and her boyfriend Noah. As the night progressed, Sophie made her way to the common area for a drink and later decided to have a cigarette. Due to the freezing Alaskan temperatures, Shirley proposed that Sophie smoke in the second-floor bathroom to avoid the cold. Sophie agreed, and in her absence, Shirley and Noah decided to leave a note on the door to inform Sophie of their outing. Little did they know, this choice would unintentionally add to the mystery surrounding Sophie's disappearance. The following morning, Shirley returned to her dorm room to find that Sophie had not come back. Worried and unable to locate any trace of her friend, Shirley reported Sophie missing to the authorities. At the same time, Sophie's family, unaware of the unfolding tragedy in Fairbanks, received a call from Sophie's orthodontist regarding her absence from a scheduled appointment. As the day progressed, a janitor cleaning the second-floor bathroom in Bartlett Hall made a chilling discovery. Sophie Sergi's body was discovered in the bathtub, having suffered a brutal assault involving binding, gagging, tasering, beating, stabbing, and ultimately a gunshot to the back of her head. The crime scene depicted the viciousness of the act, with Sophie's clothing disheveled and her body wet from the water. The revelation shook the University of Alaska Fairbanks community, prompting an immediate investigation by local authorities. Sophie's savage murder, carried out in a college dormitory, instilled fear and disbelief, leading to increased security measures and emotional support services for students. In the aftermath of Sophie's body being found on April 26, 1993, law enforcement, forensic specialists, and detectives swarmed the dormitory to meticulously scrutinize and document every detail of the crime scene. The severity and brutality of the crime necessitated a comprehensive investigation to bring the perpetrator to justice. Authorities gathered evidence, methodically examining the bathroom for fingerprints, hair samples, and potential DNA. In spite of the limitations of forensic technology in 1993, investigators acknowledged the significance of preserving these samples for future advancements in DNA analysis. Sophie's autopsy yielded no illicit substances or alcohol in her system, further underscoring the seriousness of the crime committed against her. Eyewitness testimonies played a pivotal role in assembling the sequence of events leading up to Sophie's demise. Two students, Vanessa Allen and Jennifer Roy, later provided valuable information. Vanessa, who resided in the dormitory during the semester, recounted feeling uneasy on the night of April 25th as she entered the seldom-used east side bathroom. She noticed a light on in the tub room, an uncommon sight that raised her suspicions. Vanessa heard unsettling noises resembling firecrackers emanating from the adjacent room. Similarly, Jennifer Roy, a graduating senior, was studying late on the west side of the dormitory. She heard distinct sounds through the shared wall with the other bathroom around 1:30 a.m. on Monday. Jennifer perceived an unidentified rustling sound, a loud thud against the wall, and murmuring, speculating that it might involve a male and a female. The combination of witness testimonies, forensic evidence, and the gruesome details of Sophie's assault prompted an intensified effort to identify and apprehend the perpetrator. The investigation encountered challenges due to the transient nature of college campuses, with students departing for the semester and some never returning. Tracing individuals for questioning proved arduous as room assignments frequently changed, and the dormitory roster did not consistently reflect accurate residency. As investigators conducted interviews and pursued leads, they aimed to reconstruct the timeline of events on the night of the attack, narrowing down the window between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. when Sophie's life was taken. Over the years, the Sophie Sergi case evolved into a cold case, one that investigators revisited periodically. With the advancement of forensic techniques, particularly in DNA analysis, authorities seized the opportunity to reassess the evidence. The focus shifted towards harnessing the potential of the preserved DNA samples in hopes of identifying the individual responsible for Sophie's brutal murder. A breakthrough occurred in 2018 with the progress made in DNA testing capabilities. The preserved samples underwent modern DNA analysis, enabling investigators to construct a genetic profile of the suspect. This profile could then be compared to DNA databases, significantly increasing the likelihood of finding a match. The unwavering pursuit of justice and the dedication to utilizing emerging forensic technologies played a vital role in bringing closure to Sophie's case. Genealogical DNA analysis, a method that gained prominence in solving cold cases, played a pivotal role. This technique involves comparing DNA from the crime scene with publicly available genetic databases, potentially leading to the identification of familial connections. Genealogical DNA analysis has proven instrumental in unveiling suspects in cases that have remained unresolved for decades. The investigation reached a turning point when Stephen Downs, a resident of Maine, emerged as the primary suspect. Further investigation revealed that at the time of the violent attack, Downs was attending the University of Alaska Fairbanks and residing in the dormitory where Sophie's life was tragically taken. Despite denying any connection with Sergei during his 2019 interview, Downs was arrested when his DNA definitively matched the sample collected decades ago from Sergei's body. He was subsequently extradited from Maine, where he worked as a nurse. Throughout the trial, prosecutors gathered evidence linking Downs to the crime scene, presenting a compelling case against him. Key witnesses, including Vanessa Allen and Jennifer Roy, provided crucial testimony, recounting their experiences on the night of the attack and offering valuable insights into the events that unfolded. The trial centered around reconstructing the sequence of events leading to Sophie's untimely death, relying on the recollections of those present in Bartlett Hall on that fateful night. The combination of witness testimonies and advancements in forensic technology proved to be a formidable force in the pursuit of justice for Sophie Sergei and her bereaved family. Ultimately, the trial reached its conclusion, resulting in Stephen Downs being sentenced to 75 years in prison for the assault and the loss of Sophie Sergei's life. Even though justice has been served, the profound impact of Sophie's tragic demise continues to linger. While her friends and family found closure nearly 3 decades later, their lives have been forever changed by the tragic events of 1993. The journey from an unsolved cold case to the apprehension and conviction of Stephen Downs exemplifies the transformative role of genetic genealogy in delivering justice to victims and solace to grieving families.
On January 4, 1996, a tragic incident occurred in Santa Ana, California. Christopher Hervey, a 22-year-old, lost his life while defending himself during a failed robbery. The only person present during the incident was his girlfriend, Jade Benning, who promptly reported the crime to the authorities. Fast forward to 2 decades later, an anonymous tip has sparked renewed interest in the case, revealing an unexpected suspect. Santa Ana, known for its pleasant climate, is the county seat of Orange County and the second most populous city in the area. It offers a plethora of outdoor activities, along with numerous museums and the Santa Ana Zoo, making it a popular destination for tourists worldwide. Interestingly, renowned actresses Michelle Pfeiffer and Diane Keaton both originate from this sunny city. However, in 1996, Santa Ana became the backdrop for a real-life crime mystery that could rival a Hollywood movie. In the early hours of January 4, 1996, the Santa Ana Police Department responded to a distressing 911 call. Upon arriving at the apartment complex on North Broadway Street, they were confronted with a horrifying scene. A young man named Christopher Hervey lay on the living room floor, struggling for breath and surrounded by a pool of blood. Standing nearby, in a state of shock and visibly injured, was a young woman identified as Jade Benning, Christopher's live-in girlfriend. Christopher, tragically, did not survive, and his body was taken to the local mortuary for further examination. Jade, being the sole witness to the crime, was questioned by the police after recovering from the initial shock. She recounted that she and Christopher had been sleeping in the living room due to ongoing renovations in the apartment. Upon waking up around 3 a.m., she witnessed Christopher engaged in a struggle with an unknown assailant. In her attempt to intervene, she was injured when the attacker slashed her right hand. Detectives took notice of the injury on her right hand. At that moment, Christopher had already collapsed onto the floor, and the intruder had escaped through the rear exit. Subsequently, she dialed 911 to report the incident and request assistance. Jade underwent further questioning by the police, but her general statements were eventually verified, leading to her release without charges and exclusion as a suspect. An immediate investigation into the case was initiated by the investigators. After interviewing multiple neighbors, they obtained information that supported Jade's account. The neighbors reported hearing a heated argument emanating from the apartment 15 minutes prior to the arrival of the police. Additionally, one neighbor claimed to have witnessed a man fleeing from the scene. Although the darkness prevented the identification of any specific features, the neighbor confirmed that the man's manner of walking was masculine. Despite conducting a thorough search of the apartment, minimal findings were obtained. The apartment was in disarray, but no murder weapon was discovered either inside or in the vicinity of the apartment complex. Crime scene technicians diligently worked to collect any potential DNA or fingerprint evidence. They also secured items from Christopher and Jade's apartment that could be used as evidence. In the subsequent days, an autopsy was conducted on Christopher, revealing multiple stab wounds to his upper chest. The punctured major arteries resulted in fatal bleeding. Samples were taken from his body for DNA testing, including swabs and fingernail clippings. Following the completion of the necessary procedures, Christopher's body was released to his family and laid to rest in a private ceremony at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in mid-January 1996. Subsequently, Christopher's family chose to maintain their privacy and declined media interviews. From the outset of the investigation, the detectives encountered numerous obstacles. The fingerprints found at the crime scene were all accounted for, and no matches were found in any criminal database. Furthermore, there was no trace of a murder weapon. Interviews with individuals close to Christopher and Jade failed to provide any significant leads. The case of Christopher Hervey's murder seemed to have reached a standstill, leaving Jade and the family and friends in a state of limbo. Despite the passage of time, no new leads emerged, and the investigation appeared to have hit a dead end. The authorities concluded that the motive behind Christopher's killing was a failed robbery attempt. Following the tragic event, Jade returned to her family and continued her life. Over the years, she had lived in various locations across California, including Arleta, Huntington Beach, Santa Ana, and Anaheim. Eventually, she made her way to Las Vegas, Nevada in 2001, before finally settling down in Austin, Texas. Jade managed to keep a low profile, evading media attention, and little information was available about her life after Christopher's death. It remains uncertain whether she ever married, but there are reports suggesting that she had 3 children. Additionally, Jade owned her own vintage clothing company. The case seemed to have gone cold, leaving Jade and the loved ones of Christopher in a state of perpetual uncertainty. However, a glimmer of hope emerged in January 2020, when the Santa Ana police received an anonymous letter containing previously undisclosed information. This unexpected tip shed new light on the case and implicated a potential suspect. Cold case detective Michael Gibbons of the Homicide Division at the Santa Ana Police Department took charge of the investigation, re-examining the evidence in hopes of finally uncovering the truth. Gibbons and his team meticulously examined the details of the crime outlined in the witness statement. They also scrutinized the statements provided by neighbors and the DNA evidence recovered at the crime scene. The specifics of the investigation are still undisclosed. However, officers from the Santa Ana Police Department mentioned that it involved a thorough analysis of the forensic evidence. Additionally, there was a circumstantial aspect that was explored, although information on this remains limited. On June 11, 2020, a search warrant was issued for a person of interest linked to the case. The identity of the individual was not immediately disclosed by investigators, but they revealed that their search led them to Austin, Texas. Various items of interest were confiscated and considered as potential evidence. Subsequently, over the next 2 years, investigators from the Santa Ana Police Department, the Austin Police Department, and the U.S. Marshals Lone Star Fugitive Task Force conducted surveillance on the suspect. During this period, they gathered adequate evidence that enabled them to secure a criminal complaint arrest warrant for the suspect. The apprehension of the suspect came as a surprise to everyone involved in the case when investigators finally closed in on them. The suspect turned out to be Jade Benning. At 2:20 p.m. on Tuesday, May 3, 2022, Jade Benning, now 48 years old, was taken into custody during a traffic stop near her residence in Austin, Texas, by U.S. Marshals. Jade had been returning home after picking up her youngest son from school that afternoon. She was escorted through a parking garage in handcuffs by the arresting officers. Although Jade did not provide any information to investigators, detectives have speculated that an altercation between Jade and Christopher may have escalated into violence. It is believed that Jade might have stabbed Christopher and disposed of the murder weapon before contacting 911. She then fabricated a story about an unknown intruder entering their apartment with the intent to rob them. The statements from the neighbors further support this theory, indicating that there was a heated argument before the police arrived at the crime scene. Following her arrest, Jade was held at the Travis County Jail with a bail amount of $1 million. In May 2022, she was extradited to California for her court hearing. Jade made her initial appearance in court on Monday, May 23, 2022, and her arraignment was rescheduled for June 8, 2022. During the hearing, she pleaded not guilty to the murder charge. Currently, Jade is being detained at the Orange County Jail on a bond of $1.1 million. As the case continues to unfold, there is limited information available. No updates have been provided regarding the discovered evidence. The trial date for Jade Benning has not been announced yet. At present, Jade's children are under the custody of her mother at their residence in Austin, Texas. The family of Christopher Hervey has not issued a statement regarding Jade Benning's arrest.
On August 9, 1980, Tim Hack and Kelly Drew, both 19, vanished after attending a wedding reception at Concord House in Concord, Wisconsin. In the days that followed, searchers discovered various clues scattered throughout the town, including Tim's car with his wallet, a pair of pants, ropes, and a pair of women's underwear. These clues eventually led to a horrifying discovery. 2 months later, the bodies of Tim and Kelly were found brutally violated and abandoned in a field. It took nearly 3 decades, but advancements in DNA technology, along with an unexpected witness and a determined investigator, finally revealed the identity of the perpetrator, a seemingly unassuming man whose dark secrets were unknown even to his neighbors. But who was this man? And why did it take so long to uncover the truth? Today's narrative takes us back to Concord, Wisconsin, a small town in Jefferson County with a population of just over 2,000. Known for its tranquil parks and natural beauty, Concord is a haven for outdoor enthusiasts who enjoy activities like hiking, biking, fishing, and camping. With a violent crime rate of only 7%, significantly lower than the national average of 22.7%, Concord was a place where people felt safe, rarely locking their doors and looking out for one another. It was precisely the kind of community where Tim Hack and Kelly Drew, young high school sweethearts, envisioned a future together, getting married, settling on a farm, raising their children, and growing old side by side. In 1980, Tim and Kelly, both 19, were deeply in love and engaged to be married. Despite living in different towns within Jefferson County, Tim in Hebron and Kelly in Fort Atkinson, their paths crossed while attending Fort Atkinson High School. Kelly, a young woman known for her beauty and kindness, had a deep passion for cosmetology. On the other hand, Tim, a hard-working farm boy, possessed strength and determination. Both individuals were adored by their loved ones for their compassionate nature. As a couple, Tim and Kelly served as role models for other young people. After graduating from high school, Tim pursued a career in farming, with his loyal companion being a tractor affectionately named the Lonesome Loser. Meanwhile, Kelly attended beauty school and recently completed her studies in 1980, aspiring to become a skilled hairstylist and beautician. On August 9, 1980, Tim and Kelly attended a wedding reception at Concord House, Wisconsin. Following the celebration, they had plans to meet friends and enjoy a carnival. However, they failed to appear. The last sighting of them alive was around 11:00 p.m. on August 9, 1980, when they departed from the reception. Concerned by their absence and lack of communication, by the morning of August 10, 1980, Tim's father, David Hack, reported them as missing. On the same day, David discovered Tim's brown Oldsmobile parked at Concord House, containing Tim's wallet with $67, his jacket, and his checkbook, all locked inside. The case took a significant turn on August 15th, when searchers discovered Kelly's pants and underwear by the roadside, approximately 3 miles away from Concord House. These garments were found to have male bodily fluids on them. Additionally, ropes with military-style knots were found nearby, suggesting the involvement of an individual with military experience. This discovery drastically altered the nature of the investigation. It was no longer a matter of locating a couple who may have chosen to embark on a romantic escapade. Instead, the focus shifted to finding them alive, as they were believed to be in imminent danger. Approximately 2 months later, squirrel hunters from Milwaukee stumbled upon the badly decomposed remains of Kelly Drew in a wood area approximately 7 miles from Concord House. Around 100 yards away, a fully clothed male body was discovered and later identified as Tim Hack. This marked the official declaration of the case as a homicide, earning it the name Sweetheart Murders. The exact cause of death was not immediately evident, as no murder weapon was found at the scene. However, upon further examination, the medical examiner discovered stab wounds on Tim's body and ligature marks on Kelly, indicating that they were both victims of stabbing and strangulation. Kelly had ligature marks on her ankles and wrists, suggesting she had been bound. The presence of ligature marks and insect activity around her throat area indicated that she was most likely strangled. Additionally, bodily fluids found on Kelly's clothes pointed towards a sexual assault. The Sweetheart Murders captivated the nation due to its sensational nature. 2 young lovers brutally murdered, with the killer or killers still unidentified. The investigation began by interviewing acquaintances of the couple, searching for anyone who may have harbored enough hatred to commit such a heinous act. The police also questioned individuals present at the wedding reception, including the staff at the Concord House where the event took place. Among those interviewed was Edward Wayne Edwards, a handyman employed at the Concord House. Edward, who resided in a nearby campground close to Interstate 94, claimed to have had no contact with the couple and insisted he was not present at the Concord House when they went missing. He stated that he was deer hunting in the nearby woods during that time. However, the police became suspicious when they noticed that Edward had a broken nose. When questioned about it, he attributed the injury to his deer hunting trip. This raised concerns among investigators, as deer hunting season in Wisconsin typically occurs in November, not August. Following the police interrogation, Edward relocated his wife and 5 children away from Wisconsin in September 1980. In the midst of the investigation, the investigators relied heavily on eyewitness accounts of a van with a grimy appearance that had been parked alongside Tim's car at the Concord House parking lot. Witnesses reported that the van abruptly departed under suspicious circumstances around the time Tim and Kelly were last seen. Edward happened to own a van that matched the description and was known to possess a .357 revolver. However, lacking a license plate number or substantial evidence linking him to the crime scene, the police were severely limited in their ability to pursue this lead. Consequently, all other leads in the case dried up, resulting in the shelving of the case and its subsequent stagnation. 2 decades after the murders of Tim Hack and Kelly Drew, Richard Lewell, an investigator from the Wisconsin Department of Justice who had been involved in the original investigation, requested the reopening of the case. Lewell had been unable to let go of the case for nearly 30 years, and as retirement loomed, he was determined to exhaust all efforts in solving it. In an interview, he expressed his confidence in pursuing the case due to the significant advancements in DNA technology and scientific methods over the past couple of decades. This newfound confidence propelled him to approach the case with renewed vigor. Lewell had a strong intuition that the police had already interviewed the killer during the initial stages of the investigation, and that the person's name would be documented in the files. He simply needed to uncover it. After meticulously sifting through files, witness statements, and interview recordings for 2 months, one name caught Lewell's attention: Edward Wayne Edwards. Not only did Edward possess the means and opportunity to commit the crimes, but the fact that he relocated his entire family out of Wisconsin shortly after being interviewed by the police raised significant suspicions. Encouraged by this discovery, Lewell, along with a team of cold case investigators, resolved to pursue their hunch that Edward was the potential killer. When Edward's neighbors in Concord, Wisconsin were interviewed, it was revealed that he was a challenging person to live with. Described as short-tempered and volatile, he often resorted to violence towards his wife and children. One neighbor even went as far as to call him a monster. Edward's son, John Edwards, characterized him as troubled, mentioning his inability to control his emotions and the presence of underlying rage. In 2009, April Blasio, Edward's daughter, reached out to authorities with crucial information regarding the cold case murder of Tim Hack and Kelly Drew. She believed that her father, Edward Wayne Edwards, was involved in the crime due to his extensive criminal background. April, who had always been intrigued by her father's mysterious life, felt compelled to share what she knew. Edward Wayne Edwards, born in Akron, Ohio in 1933, faced a tumultuous childhood after losing his parents and being placed in an orphanage. His experiences there, marked by abuse, contributed to his rebellious nature as a teenager. With a history of minor offenses, Edward's criminal record began at a young age, leading to his enlistment in the U.S. Marines at 18. However, his time in the military was short-lived, resulting in a dishonorable discharge after disappearing shortly after enlistment. Edward was unwilling to abandon his life of crime, which ultimately led to his recurring imprisonment. By the age of 22 in 1955, he managed to escape from jail in Akron and embarked on a spree of robbing gas stations across various states. Throughout his 20s and 30s, Edward lived as a fugitive, drifting from place to place and taking up odd jobs such as working as a ship docker, vacuum cleaner retailer, and handyman. His autobiography clearly reflects his enjoyment of the notoriety he gained during this period. Edward proudly admitted to never using an alias or disguising his identity while committing crimes, as he craved fame. However, his criminal activities caught up with him once again in 1960, resulting in imprisonment for attempting to impersonate a federal officer. Despite being held in the Portland, Oregon jail, Edward managed to escape, prompting the FBI to include him on their 10 most wanted list in 1961. Authorities eventually apprehended him in 1962 and incarcerated him at the United States Penitentiary Leavenworth. However, due to his good behavior, Edward was granted parole in 1967. He credited a compassionate guard at Leavenworth for his personal growth in his memoir. Following his release, Edward married and pursued a career as a motivational speaker. In 1972, at the age of 39, he made appearances on television shows such as To Tell the Truth and What's My Line. That same year, he published his autobiography, The Metamorphosis of a Criminal, the true life story of Ed Edwards. It seemed as though Edwards' fortunes were finally turning in his favor. He had outsmarted the system and was on the path to success. Unfortunately, his streak of good luck was short-lived. In 1977, Edward committed his first murder, targeting 21-year-old Billy Lavaco and his girlfriend, 18-year-old Judith Straub, both residents of Sterling, Ohio. The couple went on a date on August 7, 1977, but never returned. Later that day, Judith's car was discovered in the parking lot of Silver Creek Metro Park, with her shoes and purse left behind. On August 8th, the day following the incident, Norton police, along with the assistance of family members and a National Guard helicopter, initiated a search for Billy and Judith. The search party eventually discovered their lifeless bodies concealed within the dense vegetation near the Metro Park. It was evident that they had been ruthlessly shot at close range with a 20-gauge shotgun. At that time, investigators were unable to establish a connection between Billy and Judith's case and Edward, allowing him to evade justice for the murders. These killings, however, established a pattern that would persist with the subsequent murders of Tim and Kelly. Meanwhile, by 1982, at the age of 49, Edward found himself incarcerated once again in Pennsylvania, this time for arson. Nevertheless, he took pride in his criminal achievements. In 1993, Edward penned a letter to the FBI, requesting his criminal and historical records from various cities across 19 states. Supposedly, these records were intended for a new book he was writing, delving into the lives of criminals he had encountered during his time in prison, including individuals like Tony Provenzano, Charles Manson, and Jimmy Hoffa. In 1996, at the age of 63, Edward committed his third murder. This time, his victim was his foster son, 25-year-old Danny Boy Edwards, who had resided with him in Burton, Ohio, for a span of 7 years. Prior to his tragic demise, Danny Boy had served as a soldier in the U.S. Army. Edward somehow managed to persuade him to desert the army and return home. Once Danny Boy arrived, Edward deceitfully lured him into the nearby woods, where he callously ended his life with 2 gunshots to the face. Edward then callously left Danny Boy's body in a shallow grave, which was eventually discovered by a hunter who promptly alerted the authorities. Similar to his initial set of murders, Edward managed to evade justice for the killing of Danny Boy for a couple of years. Individuals close to Edward, such as his son John and daughter April, described him as a deeply troubled individual. His abusive behavior towards his wife and children was extreme, leading his children to flee from home as soon as they could to escape his torment. Investigators strongly believed that Edward perfectly fit the profile of a stereotypical serial killer. His extensive criminal history, coupled with his physical violence towards family members, and the fact that he wrote a book detailing his crimes, all pointed towards his narcissistic nature. Edward's military background provided him with the knowledge to tie the knots on the ropes that were believed to have been used to strangle Kelly. His history of arson further reinforced the perception of him being extremely controlling. Despite his elderly appearance and reliance on an oxygen tank and wheelchair due to his weight, his neighbors in Louisville, Kentucky, were unaware of the evil mind that lurked within him. However, with new evidence and April's statements, investigators had a stronger basis to suspect Edward's involvement in the murders. Upon visiting his home in Louisville, Edward initially denied any knowledge of Tim Hack and Kelly Drew's murders, but under further questioning, he admitted to being at the Concord house on the night of the murders and seeing the couple. He also confessed that he had not been deer hunting that night, contrary to his earlier claims. Edward agreed to a saliva swab for DNA testing, confident that it would not reveal anything incriminating. However, the DNA test results matched the DNA found on Kelly's pants. In 2009, Edward was living in a trailer park in Louisville, where he was well liked by his neighbors who were unaware of his dark past. It wasn't until he was brought to Wisconsin and charged with the murders of Tim Hack and Kelly Drew that his true nature was revealed. During the interview, Edward was presented with the DNA test results, further implicating him in the crimes. Investigators requested an explanation from him regarding the presence of his bodily fluids on Kelly's clothes. Edward began to stutter, fabricating a tale about an intimate encounter with Kelly on the evening of August 9, 1980, claiming it was consensual. He fidgeted in his seat, gesturing wildly. Sensing the investigator's skepticism, he let out a sigh and muttered something quietly. Upon reviewing the interview recording numerous times, investigators recalled the moment when Edward muttered, "Damn it, I killed her." This admission sealed his fate. Edward opted to plead guilty to the murders of Tim Hack and Kelly Drew. In April 2010, Edward Wayne Edwards was found guilty of the 1980 Sweetheart murders and received 2 concurrent life sentences. Despite his request for execution, Wisconsin did not have the death penalty. Retired homicide detective Phil Waters noted that Edward had a history of incarceration and understood the harsh reality of prison life. Unwilling to spend his days behind bars, Edward penned a letter to the Ohio prosecutor's office, hoping to persuade them to seek the death penalty by stating, "You're going to want to put a needle in my arm." In 2010, Edward confessed to the killings of Billy Lavaco and Judith Straub in 1977. But due to the absence of the death penalty at the time, he received life sentences for each. However, he still had one final revelation. During a jailhouse interview in 2011, Edward admitted to murdering his foster son, Danny Boy Edwards, for the life insurance money. This time, his scheme succeeded, and he was sentenced to death on March 8, 2011, for Danny Boy Edwards' murder. Despite being convicted of 5 homicides, investigators suspected that Edward may have had between 9 to 15 additional unidentified victims. In the book, The Peyton Allen Files, Phil Stanford suggested that Edward might have been responsible for the murders of Beverly Allen and Larry Peyton in Portland, Oregon in 1960. Detective Chad Garcia from the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, one of the investigators in the Sweetheart murders, also suggested that Edward might have been responsible for 15 other murders, including the Zodiac killings. Retired homicide detective John Cameron shared the belief that Edward was behind the Zodiac killings and other high-profile unsolved cases, although these claims remain unproven. Edward Edwards passed away on April 7, 2011, at the Corrections Medical Center in Columbus, Ohio, at the age of 77 due to natural causes. His death marked the end of a vicious crime spree that left 5 dead and many grieving. Edward avoided execution by lethal injection, which had been scheduled for August 31, 2011. Despite Edward's arrest for the murders of Tim and Kelly, their family members did not find closure. Norma Walker, Kelly's mother, expressed how Edward's arrest brought back painful memories instead of providing closure. Tim's father, David, felt relief that it was finally over and was grateful for the DNA technology that confirmed Edward as the killer. Edward's daughter, April Blasio, who helped solve the cold case, now dedicates her time to assisting other families of victims with unsolved cases through her podcast, The Clearing. Tim Hack and Kelly Drew had promising futures ahead of them, but their lives were tragically cut short by their killer, Edward Wayne Edwards. Edward, the serial killer, had no personal vendetta against the couple. They were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, adding to the tragedy of their story. Following Edward Wayne Edwards' arrest and the conclusion of the cases, the loved ones of Tim Hack and Kelly Drew, along with the other victims, still struggled to come to terms with the aftermath of the tragedies. Even though Edward's conviction provided some closure, the wounds inflicted by his deeds remained profound.